Hi dear viewers. Today I'm joining a conversation with Stephanie Rowe, the author of Fiercely Me. It's quite a pleasure to have Stephanie on the show today to talk about her impressive book. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well. It's really amazing to have this conversation. I'm excited to be on board with you too. So, Stephanie, I would first like to say that, mere reading through the description page of your book on Kobo sounds very pulling, emotional, and compelling to me. And I would like to ask you, considering the tons of experiences that you went through, why did you decide to write this book? What were you trying to achieve with this book? What was the aim?
Um, that's a great question. So I decided to write this book. Well, one, I always had a goal throughout my entire life. I wanted to write my memoir, and it's been on my board. It's been on my vision board on my wall, like for maybe 15 years. So it's something that
Mm,
I had wanted to do, and I've always written, but I'd never kind of sat down and kind of concentrated on like the flow and how I was going to write it. But the second reason, really, of like what kind of put a fire underneath me was a lot of people in my life and in my family had taken my narrative and my story and had taken it as their own, and had kind of, essentially made up things that weren't true. And I was like, you know what?
mm,
I'm so insanely over this happening. I'm going to write my story. I'm going to take back
oh,
my narrative and I'm going to release it so that the world can know what happened. And so that
well,
was really the driving force, was that, yeah, I wanted to take my story back. And I also wanted people to um I wanted people to understand that they weren't alone, that, because
mm,
a lot of the time that before I written this book, I felt really isolated and alone. And I really, really, really wanted people to know that, these things happen to everybody and that they weren't alone,
absolutely.
and that, we stand together. And as the book has been released, is being released, and people are reviewing it, I've realized that it's just not my story. It's just not my book. It's
Well,
our story and it's our book. And that, my story is resonating with a lot of people, and
mm,
people are really connecting with it. And they're coming up to me and they're going, oh my God, I have an auntie like that person in
well,
the book. And, so it's beautiful in that sense. It's like taking on its own, life, which is, exactly what you want as an author.
wow, this sounds very amazing to me, really. I love the sound of it. Now, I'd also love to ask you, for readers who haven't read the book yet, and of course, without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up Fiercely Me? I might want to talk in terms of theme this way, yeah.
Yeah. So my book is not written like your normal memoir,
Mm,
which is, typical for my style. I'm always pushing the boundaries of conception.
wow.
So I essentially wrote this book, and it's kind of more about like different things that I realized. So things that I experienced, what I learned from it, and then how I kind of change that situation.
Mm,
And so although I start at my when I'm a younger child, that's where I kind of start. I don't necessarily stay on numerical order. So I what I do is I kind of go through different experiences, and some of them are younger, some of them are when I'm a teenager, some of them are when I'm in my 20s. But essentially, I take the reader on a journey of learning and developing, and what things can happen, and then how I dealt with them, and then what happens afterwards when you decide to develop and you decide to have self-reflection, and
mm,
you want to be a better person. So I started out though, with some very interesting stories. So my mum and dad, they bought a bus, and we essentially lived a nomadic lifestyle for 3 years, and we went
wow.
around the outside of Australia. Yeah, we went around the outside of Australia, in the bus. And so my first memories are of like beautiful, beautiful Australian country, like just massive vastness. And yeah, so it kind of, in one way, it gives you a very huge insight to, I suppose, why I am who I am and why I
Mm,
see things in a kind of a different way, because I had that liberation to be free and have an imagination and to see the world, explore nature, to
mm.
go out and go frolicking in the hills. So it was, yeah, it's beautiful in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very amazing to me. I love the sound of it. And I like the fact that you mentioned, the family issue as well, and your memoir not
Yeah.
being like the regular memoir that we know. And I think I cited that or must have noticed that while I was reading through it on your website, because I was like, I think this is a bit different because I know, yeah, it's a memoir, but then it want to sound like a novel, like a fiction. But then again, I'm seeing a real life story. I was like, okay, what's happening here? Well, yeah, it's amazing.
Well,
We're talking about it now.
it's so interesting because, like, I had this, and I think so proud of this review, honestly. So
Mm.
I had this person review the book, and like the first sentence was, "Well, I just thought this was going to be like a every other memoir self-help book, but boy was I wrong." And I was just like, I was like, yes. I was just like, because I didn't want it to be like, I got all this pressure to make it a self-help book and to put exercises in. And I was like, my story isn't a self-help book. Like, I don't want to do that. That is not what I want
Mm.
to do. Do you know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, I want to write my story, and then through expressing my story, people will be able to connect and relate, and they'll be able to take something
absolutely.
away, which is exactly what happened. But there was a
Oh,
lot of pressure for me to not do that. And so yeah, so it's not written like you normally would. But I love that. And then the reviews have just been like, she's like, you need to read it. Like, it's just such a different book, and it's just done so well. So, and I was just, and there's moments in life where we can truly feel joy, like like
mm.
feel that immense elated happiness. And I think
Absolutely.
getting these reviews in and like knowing that people have been connecting with my words and
Yeah.
connecting with my book, I don't think I've felt so overjoyed and elated like I have get receiving them, because it's just like all the hard work, everything that I've done. When a reader reads the book, they connect to it and they get something out of it, and that's all I wanted. So
Mm.
it's such a great feeling.
Well, that's good, amazing to know, really. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, I know that, writing the book might be a bit tasky or, presenting some challenges. And I'm curious to know if you experience any challenges while writing Fiercely Me. If there is any, could you share with us what challenge it is and how you ultimately overcame it? Also, sorry, I'd love to add this. How do you came up with the title Fiercely Me? I'm curious.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so firstly, I'll answer the title first. So it was originally had a different title, and then everyone was like, "Oh, that title's too long. It doesn't work." And I was like, "Okay." And then I was like so frustrated because like picking a title for a book is like really hard. Like, it's not easy. Like, you try picking like a title for your life, essentially. That's what I was doing. Like, get a title for your life. And it's just like, how the hell can I narrow that down? There's so many
Mm,
words that describe my life. Anyway, I was at the time I was being really pressured by professionals within the
oh,
within the publishing industry. And they were like telling me that I was doing things wrong, and that my book wasn't very good, and I needed to do it so differently. And it was like, and I was really, really gutted, honestly. Like, I was
oh,
really gutted, and I was like so upset, because I was just like, man, I feel like I'm on the right path. My gut was
mm,
telling me that I was on the right path. So I was going to work one day, and at the time I had a scooter, and so I was like scooting down the road to work, and I was just like, oh, and I was like far out, man. These people are really like stuffing me around, and I really don't like it. And they're so like they don't understand. And then I realized like that I'm so headstrong, and it's just like if I was anyone else, it'd be fine because they'd be like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do what you tell me to do. I'll make it a self-help memoir. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that, and no, you don't understand the story. And then I was just like, I'm just fiercely me. And I just thought to myself, I'm just so fiercely me. Like I'm so headstrong and I go with my gut, like, and so that's how the name came about because I was just like, oh man, that's the name. Like there's not a better name to describe me.
Wow.
So that's how I got the name of the book.
Wow, that's quite amazing, really. I love the description and the story behind the making of the name of the title. Now, apart from Firstly Me, do you have any other works you've authored or maybe currently working on?
Yeah, I do. So I have got a few projects going on at the moment. So I also am a devout poetry lover.
Oh,
And yeah, and so outside of having Fiercely Me, which you can get on my
beautiful
website,
cover. Yeah.
yeah, thank you, mrsrowe.org. I've also if you go onto my website, mrsrowe.org, you can also see at the top there's a page for poetry. And so I put on a call out online to say, hey guys, is there anyone that wants to contribute to a collaboration poetry book? Because I had poetry, but I didn't have enough to print my own, like a full book for myself. And so essentially it just took on this whole, world of its own. And so there's 24 poets and they're from all over the globe. We have a lady from Palestine, we have a couple of people from Canada, we have a couple of people from America, we've got a couple from Australia, we have Scotland, Ireland, and England. Um, and then the nationalities vary just by where the location is.
Mm.
We also have a blind man. We have two people who aren't with us anymore, so a grandmother
Oh,
and a mother. And so they reached out to me and they said, oh, hey Steph, my mum and my grandmother really wanted their poetry to be published before they
wow.
passed away. Do you think that we can submit it? Because like I would love to, give them that wish. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd be honored, absolutely honored to have it. So
Wow.
we're publishing those too. Yeah. So it's like it's just kind of taken on it's a world of its own, honestly.
Mm.
It's called The World in Our Words. And it's a really liberating project because the poetry is just phenomenal, like phenomenal. Like I could not have asked for better poetry. And everyone's kind of everyone's working together on it. It's been this beautiful cultivation of
Wow.
like just letting go of borders and just kind of using word to express what's happening in the world, but in a collaborative way. So, really, really beautiful project. And
Wow.
at the end of last year, I had a really bad accident.
Oh,
We were in Peru, and our tour bus driver was driving us to the Amazon. We got to the Amazon, and then the guy decided to drive the the bus off of a cliff.
wow.
And so yeah, I know. So it's amazing that I'm here and alive, to be honest.
Wow.
And everyone else survived and walked away, but we were pretty beaten up. And so from that, we had this kind of me and my husband had this huge year last year of like different experiences, and it ended obviously there. So I decided that it's really imperative. Like I obviously love writing. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And if you couldn't tell, and I used like writing is very therapeutic, and it's like I don't
Absolutely.
know, yeah, it's just there's something like it just touches the soul
Yeah.
in a way I can't really describe. And so I
Mm.
decided that I'm going to start writing once because like my launch of my book is on the 4th of February in Brisbane at a place called Mary Mays. If anyone wants to come.
That's
um,
great.
It is great. I'm so excited. It's going to be amazing. So I've got live music before, like musicians coming into play. There's going to be prize giveaways, special guests. It's going to be really, really great. But anyway, so once that's released, once I do my launch of my book, then I'm going to start writing the second one so that I can
Wow.
because yeah, so then that's going to be coming out obviously in the next couple of years. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's quite
they're my projects.
amazing. That's quite amazing. And I hope it goes on well. Hopefully, when that is up, would love to have you back on the show to talk about it. That would be
Oh,
great.
I'd love to come back. I would absolutely love to come back, Peter.
Yeah. Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Also, are there any challenges you've encountered ever since it got published? Also, I'd love to ask you, how do you undo criticism as a writer, especially the negative ones?
Yeah. Um, that's a great question. So self-publishing is difficult. It's very, very difficult. But I think that even if you went through a publishing house, it's like not that different,
Yeah.
except you just don't have the edit, like you're obviously not sourcing the editor and the typesetter and the proofreader and stuff. So you kind of don't deal with that element, but you still have to, as an author, you still have to go over the revisions, you still have to work with the editor, so you still have
Yeah.
to kind of do that part. It's just that you're not sourcing the editor. But yeah, it's a labor intensive and it's stressful. And like there's been many instances where like I engaged 4 editors before I
Wow.
got my editor, and all of them came up with random excuses that they couldn't do it. And then the 5th editor did it, which I'm happy about, and he was amazing. But he also like didn't do it to the best of his ability in the end of it. The last kind of part of it was a bit, I had to really push him to get it over the line. So like it's essentially you're dealing with an employee and you're having to
Mm.
manage them. So like if you don't have that mindset of you've never done it, it can be very difficult, because ultimately the book, once
Yeah.
it's like printed, once you've gone through that editing process, you have to be really strong about what you want in the direction and be able to work very closely with the editor.
Mm.
Um, and if you don't have that kind of personality, it can be very difficult. You can end up with a book that you don't actually like or isn't, what you wanted. So, going into it, you have to understand that and understand there's a lot of moving parts. Everything takes a really long time.
Yeah.
Um, so like the editing process probably takes between 6 to 2 months. The
Wow.
proofreading takes another, 3 weeks to 4 weeks. The typesetting takes another 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like everything takes a long
Time.
time to do. So, it's been a long journey, but there's a lot to it, and I have now done it, and I'm really happy that I've done it, because it's like something that I can now go, you know what? I actually know how to publish a book.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and so then because you've got that part, but then you've also got like if you want to sell it, which I'm selling it through my website,
Mm.
um, you then have to work out how to then distribute the ebook without it being pirated. So I've gotten this
Yeah.
program where it's got encryption so people can't pirate the book. So, like there's all these things that happen in the background that you never thought as an author that you would deal with.
Wow.
That like you do, especially if you want to, sell and just distribute yourself, which is what I wanted to do, because I didn't really like Amazon and their terms and conditions. So
Mm.
I was just like, I'm just going to do this myself. Um, so yeah, so there's all of that, and how do I deal
And
with
do
criticism?
criticism. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, because especially when it's your memoir in the sense of your life. So
Yeah.
essentially people are criticizing your life. So me and my husband, like he would read it once I'd written the chapters, he would read it and then he would go, this needs more or that needs more. And for me, I was like, yeah, this the start I'd be subjective, so obviously I'd be like, well, what do you mean? And then he'd be like, well, why don't you draw out like what you were doing and what you were wearing and what the environment was, and like build that picture, because that's missing at the moment. And so And so then I'd go back and I'd do that. And then I'd go, okay, what about this? And then he'd be like, yeah, that's way better, you know? And so then it just kind of starts to build. So he was really, my book wouldn't be here without him, honestly, because he
Wow.
was the one that would read it and go, you need, you know, this is missing or that's missing, or how about you think about this, or, you know, the flow of this isn't working. And so, you know, there was times where it was really difficult because, you know, like I am talking about things which aren't some of the things that aren't the easiest to talk about. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you're having to be objective about not only your life, but your writing, which
Hmm.
is so vulnerable. You
Hmm.
know, obviously I had emotions and I had lots of different emotions that came up. But, you know, was it because of the critique? It partly, but not really. Do you know what I mean? I think it was more the fact that you're pouring your soul, your
Hmm.
soul out,
Yeah.
you know, on the paper. Like you were like, I didn't hold anything back. So everything was really on the table for everyone to read, you
Wow.
know. So when you get there, that place, you know, there's a massive amount of vulnerability that you feel. And of course, if someone's going to come in and say something about that, you're going to have a
Wow.
little bit of an emotional response. And like, you know, there was times that I just fell onto the ground and just cried, honestly,
Hmm.
because it was a really big endeavor.
Wow.
So yeah, but then once I finished the book, once I got to that place, I welcomed it, if that made sense, because I'd gotten through it. I was like through the emotional stuff. And once it
Wow.
was finished, after my first draft, I was like, okay, how can I make this book as good as it can be? I'm like, give me your
Wow.
feedback. I want to know. I want you to critique it. I want you to tell me so that I can make this the best book. And so essentially while I was writing it, I was really, really heightened in emotions and it was like very, very touchy. But then once I'd
Wow.
finished it, I was like, all right, this is it. This is the time that we make this thing amazing, like the best book that I can produce. And I was just like, give me the criticisms, I want to know everything so that I can make this better. And that's exactly what I did. I just kept improving it and improving it. I rewrote it after the first draft because I thought I was a unicorn and I thought, oh, my first draft's gonna be amazing. And then I reread it and I was like, it ain't amazing, baby cakes. And so I had to literally, literally like have an honest word with myself and be like, okay, you are not a unicorn. Okay, doll, you're not a unicorn. Go back, sit down and rewrite that.
Wow.
um, and so I did that. So, you know, like after I'd gotten through, like finished the first draft, I was a lot less emotional about it. And I was able to be
Hmm.
objective and just, okay, this isn't
That's
working. This is so. And
wow.
that's what we have today. We have this book because of all of the critiques and all the feedback and all of the suggestions. So
Yeah. Wow, that's quite amazing, really. And that's got a lot to take in. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, much
you're
appreciated.
welcome.
Yeah. Now, Stephanie, is there anything that you would love to share with the viewers about your book that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? Also, as a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book? What do you advise people in this category?
Yeah. Well, did you want me to read a little bit?
Absolutely, that would be great.
Okay, I'll read a little bit. Okay, where are we? Here we go. Through my demonstration of strength by opening up about sexual and other forms of abuse, I aspire to spark a wave of change that motivates others to speak out as well. Our collective experiences have subtle differences, but they are still share a common thread. The opportunity for change can be the catalyst needed to break the conditioning that keeps people from speaking out and being taken seriously. Creating a society that ensures the safety and well-being of every human being, including children, is vital in the times ahead. The more we develop and educate ourselves as society and a race, the more we equip ourselves to confront change and shape a more positive future for the upcoming generations. I
Mm,
think only through sitting in discomfort are we able to give ourselves the opportunity to develop.
wow. That's quite amazing. That's very amazing, really. And the themes you talked there, the things you went through, the experiences encountered, a lot of them makes for an interesting read and a
It
wholesome,
does.
discussion. That's an amazing team. That's a great work, really.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Peter.
that's a
Thank you
great
so much.
work.
That
Yeah.
means a lot. you. So thank you.
You're
And my
welcome.
advice to other authors. Oh, so every story deserves to be written and it deserves to be seen. Everyone has a story and everybody
Absolutely.
deserves to have that story out there for readers to read. Um, it's my only thing that I would suggest is, it's hard, it's difficult, and it's not an easy process. So be
So,
prepared for it.
yeah,
Be prepared you got to have a little bit of resilience in the process. Like from the time that I started writing the book in August of 2022, and to have it published now is very quick. That is a very, very quick turnaround for
yeah,
books. People can take, 5, 10, 15 years to write a book. So for me to just kind of smash it out and to get it to this point in that time frame, everyone's very surprised. Very surprised.
Wow. That's
um, but
amazing.
if you're wanting to write, just do it. It's the
Yeah,
most beautiful thing that we can. Like we were
absolutely.
like, you know, not that long ago, people didn't have an education to be able to read and write. And so the fact that we are educated enough now to be able to
Yeah,
read and to be able to write. We
yeah,
have the ability now to interact with the world around us. We have the ability to advocate for people that might not have that voice, that might not
mm,
have that wherever they're from in the world. So,
yeah,
it's so important to use what we have. So everybody deserves to write. Everybody deserves to take the time out and have, positive self-care. And if self-care is writing, great. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? If it's reading, fabulous.
mm,
Um, it would be understanding that, like if you do take this endeavor on, it is a difficult process, but it's one that's very, very rewarding at the end. So,
yeah,
and depending on what the subject is, and I will put a warning out on this, depending on what you're writing about, because I write about some pretty, risque things, I'll say, is that my family, do not support the book at all.
wow,
They, you know, they don't support it because it reflects badly on them. So,
wow,
there's also having to understand that element of it is that, depending on what the subject is, depending on what you're writing about, it might not be received that great. And so
mm,
that's also why, I had to kind of also back myself 100% as well, because I was just like, no, 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 this story needs to be out. It needs to be written. And it
mm,
doesn't matter if I don't have your support. So, like taking in that kind of holistic view as a
yeah,
new author when you're going into this is probably a good thing.
yeah.
But go and write. Your story deserves to be out there.
Absolutely. I so much love your advice, really, and I'm hopeful that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Stephanie, in case we have some interested viewers who are currently watching this interview and would like to get a copy of Fiercely Me, what platform is it available on for purchase?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is mrsrowe.org, and you can buy it through there. So I have it available for ebook, but I also have it available for paperback as well. So I have international shipping, so you can
Wow.
so you can essentially be anywhere in the world, and I can send you a copy of my book. And you can be anywhere in the world and get a ebook as well. So I can send that through to you wherever you are. And I also have it up on Kobo, and I also have it up on Google Books as well. So they're the three platforms that you can find my book. But if you do head to my website,
Yeah.
there is a lot of like fun things that are happening on there. So that, as I said, there's the poetry book. You can also find me on social. So TikTok, I'm Stephanie Rowe. Instagram and Facebook, I'm Mrs. Rowe Author. And
Okay.
come and have a look, come and have a follow. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening, and I'm a pretty entertaining human.
Yeah, I can
So
see.
you might get a little bit of entertainment along the way as well.
That's amazing. I can see to the entertainment. And yeah, I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Stephanie's books directly on our website and on other platform. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and I hope you have sweet dreams.
Yeah, you too.